Right, someone else is going to have to try and work this out while we're doing this. You have to check on YouTube.
It's not showing on YouTube yet.
It's not showing on YouTube yet.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, I see it.
Awesome. Hey. Okay, so here we are again at our Verse. Hey, everyone. And hello to everyone on the stream as well. Thanks for bearing with us. We've had some issues with audio and visual and usual sort of stuff when you're setting up a live stream. So we've got 3 talks lined up for this evening. And first up, we've got Werner, who's on the screen with us now. Say hi to everyone, Werner. So Werner and I got talking at Svelte Summit back in September. Now, do you remember what it was we were talking about? It's how fast the human brain can process audio or something, right?
Yes, the 39 bits per second, the speed of human, the information rate of human speech.
Yeah, so I thought that was quite interesting at the time, and we agreed to just have a chat about it after Summit and after we'd all finished traveling. Little did I know that was just like the tip of the iceberg to how interesting Werner Stuckey is, because I then sort of discovered you run your own telecoms company, which you sort of built from the ground up with your own infrastructure, which was like a talk in itself. And I thought it was just, mind blowing what you're actually doing with what you had to hand. So first up, congrats on that. But you're not here to talk about that, are you? You're here to talk about real-time working. So I think what we'll do is, because everyone's been waiting so long, we'll just get stuck straight into that. There is one thing I want to ask everyone here before we go any further. We'd like to take some promotional pictures and share them online. So if anyone's got any problems, doesn't want their image being taken, could you let me know, and we'll make sure that we take you out of any images going forward. And as you know, there's a Svelte Society Code of Conduct. If you find anyone is in breaching of that, please come and talk to either myself or Akash here, and we will deal with it accordingly. But less about that. Let's get talking to Werner. So I'm going to have to mess about with this, so you can share your screen, Werner. Just bear with me a sec.
It's already shared.
It's already shared. I need to exit full screen and share. And
looks like we've lost the live audience. I'll just give them a moment to jump back in.
Sorry, I'm really good at taking myself out of the stream before actually finishing my sentence. So you're good to go. You're sharing your screen now, so you can start when you're ready. Cheers.
Cool, thanks. What makes the human brain so amazing? Is it the size? Is it that the average size grew by almost 1,000 cubic centimeters over 5 million years? But an elephant has a larger brain than we do. So is it maybe that we have more neurons than an elephant? Is it the density of neurons? The brain is the most complex object in the known universe. But I'd argue that both the size and the neuron count are only relevant when you consider something else. its real power is to help our species rule the planet is not obvious. By itself, the human brain is useless. Stripped of the cumulative ideas of civilization and of the capacity to collaborate widely, it becomes just a useless blob of tissue. The human brain is only amazing when it's connected and working together with other brains spread across humanity. One of the ways that we've given our brains superpowers is demonstrated here tonight. I can sit here in Johannesburg, South Africa, and I can transmit ideas, patterns represented by neural pathways that I have in my head through a system we call the internet to you. I can attempt to replicate ideas that I have in my brain over to you so that you can add them to your cumulative ideas of civilization. Once you have the idea, you can mix it with your other ideas and you can resolve the conflicts and hopefully reach a consistent state. No, Werner was wrong here, but maybe he had a valid point there, you might say. So let's call the idea of web application development a data type, and I'm transmitting updates to this data type. You do conflict resolution and arrive at a new updated idea of web application development. As I watch YouTube videos, attend conferences, and receive feedback from you guys, I get updates to my idea of web application development. And this is analogy for what I want to talk about today, CRDTs. Conflict-free, replicated data types. Now, that's quite a mouthful. It's a data type that automatically synchronizes state, resolves conflicts, and arrives at a consistent state. I'm not going to go into the details of how they work. I'd rather concentrate on the practical application of them. But back to my main point. Collaboration is the key success of our species. So, collaboration, key success of our species, and it's our job as web developers to build the very collaboration tools. So we have a huge responsibility. Our job is to connect millions of ideas to each other faster and with less friction. So I'm asking you guys tonight, are we taking this seriously? Are we still requiring users to refresh the page? Do we think that automating that, refreshing the page with a set timeout that polls the server for changes is good enough? Are we not unwittingly causing micro frustrations among our users, leading to friction in human collaboration? I've encountered so many recently developed web applications that still use these techniques. It's time to stop. So I think we should adopt a collaborative first approach to web application development. What do I mean by that? So I mean that the state on the browser should equal the state on the server, which implies that it should equal the state on all the other browsers. You should have no save buttons to synchronize edits. There should be real-time updates. We should have much fewer API endpoints. You shouldn't have to refresh the page to hydrate new content, and definitely no timers running on the browser to refresh content. We're not doing this widely enough. Are we still polling for a server for updates in 2023? In my view, the plumbing of the internet should be hidden from the user. If you and I are on the same web page, we should see the same thing, even if you just did an update that affects that content. So let's dive deeper into this. Is it really so difficult to achieve? So let's take an obvious example, to-do list application. So we've got two browsers and two users. If we're both on the same to-do list, whenever I tick off a to-do, you should see a tick off on your side too. So it should synchronize those two pages immediately. But I want to start with a less obvious example. This is a blog. When a user posts a comment, that comment should show up immediately on the other user's browser. And yes, I think we should aim for this. Probably no one will do this for blogs yet. The value lost by missing internet comments the moment they are posted is minuscule at best. You could maybe even argue and say that speeding up distribution of internet comments will be the downfall of our species. But I'm using an extreme example to illustrate a point. We need to aim our sights to the end goal of web development. If you follow the progress and draw a line into the future, where does web development end up? I think it ends up where all state is synchronized all the time, everywhere. So let's continue with this idealized example. So let's look at how we do things currently with Stone Age web tooling. We do it like this, right? Representational state transfer, or REST. So one of the browsers might post to the article's endpoint and then get that article. There might be a post to a comments endpoint and get the comments, update a comment. If this browser wants to view the article, we'll do a get, and we'll have to refresh if that article was updated. So there are currently some great solutions out there. So let's look at a few. Before that, it's not like we haven't been thinking of state management. We've done a great job inside the browser. We synchronize a data model with the DOM, and from the DOM back to the data model. And we've got lots of people solving this problem, right? The best of which many of us think is Svelte, right? So there's a lot of frameworks that handle this state over here. But when it gets to the server state, the synchronization between the server and all the browsers is less developed problem. So let's just look at some of the common ways that you can do this. So GraphQL has mutations and subscriptions. So you could wire all of this up, and there's some great libraries that will help you do this. You can persist the data on the server. So this browser, for example, will add a comment via mutation, and the other browsers will be listening via subscription. They will immediately get that comment back into the browser. So we can achieve this collaborative software that we're aiming for. Another great example is like Firestore. We're getting closer. We've got the centralized model, and we can do inserts, and we can observe the updates. Firestore is an example of a replicated data type, although we still struggle with a conflict resolution part, for example, within textual data fields. We could bypass the problem altogether and use some of these frameworks that just skip the client-side state and essentially just provide a view into a server-held state. But let's jump back to the beginning. What are we really trying to achieve? We've got this is the case of most web applications. But actually, what we're trying to do is we just want these states to be synchronized. It's that simple. So let's take our example and let's call the state something. So if I'm on a particular blog post article, let's call that the article CRDT. It contains everything to do with that article. It contains the article, the title, the tags, and all the comments in an array. That's the state I want to synchronize. So let's dream for a moment. Let's think, what if we had a magical data box? It could synchronize with all the other data boxes to track the state. Now, what if these data boxes could link to each other in a peer-to-peer way? What if one of the data boxes went offline and you changed it, when it came back online, it automatically synchronized? What if these magical data boxes automatically resolve their differences? I like calling CRDTs magical data boxes. But of course, we're all adults and we know that magic doesn't exist. But it certainly feels like magic, what I imagine magic would feel like if it existed. So this is what CRDTs accomplish in a practical sense. The CRDT can sit on the browser or on a server or anywhere you like. You don't need to make a distinction. It's just a shared state. It's very nice and it's easy to reason about. So there are many different ways to help you try and understand this concept. Some people maybe think of it like within each CRDT, there's a group of bots that are copying and pasting a document in the background between all the servers and the browsers. For physicists, you might think of it like quantum entanglement. The boxes are entangled and their state changes in unison. So CRDTs hide this complexity and they make the state synchronization across data models spread out all over the internet. So all you can see is these data models and reason about them independently, not having to worry about the plumbing of the internet. The big library in JavaScript for achieving this is called YJS, and I'm going to show you some more of the power of this library. Okay, but how do we bring this power into our favorite framework, Svelte? Svelte stores are the perfect match for these magical data boxes we're calling CRDTs. As a CRDT gets updated, it can affect the store. And if we update the store, we can update the CRDT. So we connect the CRDT's magic to the magic of Svelte. Magic squared. For the server, we can connect the server CRDT to a database to persist the data. So if we put back the plumbing of the internet, we get something like this. We get Svelte stores attached to YJS documents, which are the CRDTs, and the state is synchronized amongst them, and we can persist state onto whatever database on the server side. Okay, enough slides. Show us something real, Vanna. Okay, let's go for that. So I've got two browsers open here, and currently I'm using YJS, and we've got the exact to-do list app that we spoke about. So let's say get milk, one of our to-do lists, and you can see it shows up on this side immediately. Another one, but shopping, whatever you want to do, and the state is synchronized between the two browsers. There's somebody else who's on this site as well, and they're busy working because it's a synchronized data model. Actually, this is running on my local host, but I've bound it to the WebRTC that's in the sync store documentation down here. So even if you go onto syncstore.org and you add something here, you're going to be joining my presentation. So I've just synchronized it by WebRTC to that exact spot. So the to-do list should be it's quite easy to do. If I jump into some code, this is the store. This is my store.js. So I'm using a library sync store that's built on top of YJS. I'm using the WebRTC provider, and I'm basically binding into this WebRTC provider room. Well, that's not a room, but yeah. And then that's it. This is the to-do demo. And essentially, I've got this Svelte store that I'm picking up. and I'm just got an each block, and I am binding to all of those to-dos. Great, nice and easy. Okay, let's move on to the next demo. So this is a demo that should be more directed to sort of web developers to help you to understand, get a bit of a deeper understanding of how the CRDT works. So here's a JSON editor, and I can edit something over here, and it will pop up this side. So I can now start building whatever I want, whatever data structure I can think of, I can start building over here. And as I'm building it over here, you'll see obviously this side is going to update. And either side can update. I can add in arrays. This is a list of things, and I can start adding things into the array. And this can be synchronized across the internet. And I can go in here, I can remove specific items out of the array, and everything is synchronized through CRDTs in the background with very minimal code. So this is sort of what I'm getting at collaborative first applications. So let's take this JSON a bit further and closer towards our blog example. So here's our blog example. I'm going to use the JSON editor at the top. And what I've done here, if I jump into the code, I'm getting my Svelte store, and then I'm using this great library, Svelte Writable Derived. I'm just creating a title store and a content store. So I'm binding my text area to the content part of that structure. And I'm binding my JSON editor. I'm binding this input to the title store. And what we get is we can change the title. So you can see we can change the title inside the input box, changes inside this visualization of our data model. Hi guys. So you can see we can change the title, right? CRDTs are cool, right? And yes, we've got an array of comments, right? And Alice doesn't agree. All right, let's duplicate that and say, how about now? Right. And you can see as I'm working around with these, right? As I'm editing anything over here, you can see that it synchronizes across the browsers. Everything live, conflicts are resolved automatically. Okay, so hopefully I've been able to show you like very quick, small code examples. This is the code I'm showing you. Like that's not a lot of boilerplate. That's not a lot of stuff to get set up. This is using WebRTC. So at Stubber, we're building some collaborative software, and we've actually pushed this to the extreme using Svelte. So, and we're also using some of the other cool stuff that you get out of the box with some of these CRDT libraries. So off the bat, I've got awareness. So as you can see, I'm moving my cursor this side, it's moving that side. I can move things around on this canvas, and they synchronize. Let's add an action here, showing Svelte Society. But I can move things around. I can basically go in here and say I want to add a field. Let's add a checkbox field over here. You can see everything is synchronized. Let's add a text field over here. Let's go and edit this text field. And we're both two people busy working on a form. And I say the title should be like this. Here's just a little bit of a debounce on this. So you can see as I'm editing here, it will show up on this side as well. And we can collaboratively edit these actions. If I'm editing this description over here like this, got a 500 millisecond debounce, it will show up on this side. Like that. So you can see synchronization across browsers, nice and simple. So we're using this in a very deeply nested model. So if you can look at this is sort of our model, and it's a huge model. It goes quite deep. And this whole model here is completely synchronized to the visual editor. I mean, I can even go in here on this side on the JSON editor and just edit it, add a new object. there it is, new item, and here it's visualized it for me, and we can rename it, and it will automatically synchronize on this side. If I go into fields, you'll see this little counter should increase. Let's add an object over there. You'll see that one increases on 1. So all of this is built with Svelte, connected to CRDT, synchronized across browsers. And this is sort of what I envision as collaborative software. Everything is live all the time. We're editing on this draft, and we click publish to like make these changes permanent. So let's jump back. Hopefully this gives you some sort of idea, the power behind CRDTs, and why I think it's one of the easiest ways to build collaborative software. So let's just jump back into the presentation for a moment. Sorry. Okay, so you want to build this same type of software. Where do you start? So there's some great resources out on the internet. I'd start with crdt.tech, great list of resources. I'm a big fan of Kevin and his YCRDT project. YJS is part of this project, and it's probably the most, the easiest to use, biggest, and most well-rounded CRDT for JavaScript. It's at the heart of most of the higher level libraries. But if you really want to get started easily, I'd really suggest a synced store, which based on YJS, it abstracts nearly everything out of the way for you. All you need to do is interact with a store. I'd start off with WebRTC, and then as you get going, you can move to WebSockets to do the synchronization in the background. So now that I've shown you all of this, you are trapped, because you now know that it's easily possible to build software like this. You don't have any excuses anymore. You have no plausible deniability. So to summarize, I'm transmitting an update to your idea of web application development. I want you to change the way you think about web application development. And I'm asking you to join the community of people that use these libraries. The more human brains having this idea, and the more human brains working with this idea, means we can improve it faster. It's still a bit tricky getting things like WebRTC set up, and there's still libraries needed and a lot of contributions. So more community means more help. But it all starts with a commitment, and it starts with a commitment to building collaborative first applications. So these libraries and CRDTs in general will help you build the better collaborative tools for humanity. So it will lighten the load. It will make you, instead of feeling like this, it will actually lighten the load. And the load is definitely lightened by the great work done by the first movers on this technology. So I'm asking you tonight to start building collaborative first applications and join the CRDT community. Thanks a lot for listening, guys.
Awesome. Hello, Werner. Can you hear us? No, mic's still muted.
Yes, I can.
Oh, you should see it here, right? We've got 3 laptops and just a massive mess of wires. So, sorry. And I'm guessing we're going to see if there's any questions from anyone on who's watching on YouTube, and if there's anyone here who has any questions as well. So before we do that, let's just great talk. Let's just show some of these. Great talk, Werner. Thank you. Right. So if anyone has any questions in the chat, just post them and we'll ask Werner. And I'm guessing there's some people here who want to ask some questions too. So let's just go with Yanni. I'm sorry, you're going to have to come over here to the microphone. Sorry. You can ask me.
No, that's good. Is there a camera that Werner can see me?
There you go, mate.
Hi, Werner. Thanks for a great talk. I fully agree with your thesis for more collaborative software for the future. I'm working on some collaborative software using YJS myself. And so my question would be, you provided a very positive case for YJS, but like, have you found any like trade-offs, in the particular library or some nature of CRDTs that might make, that technology sometimes hard to use, or would you say that it's all rosy from here on out?
Yeah, so it's a little bit tricky to get your head around it when you start using it. And there's multiple ways to do the same thing. Like, are you going to use sub documents, or are you just going to put everything into a map, and the different sub document types like map and array? So, but for basic use case, the Svelte that sync store abstracts all of that, and it does all of that in the background for you. So there's also some other libraries. I had a chat with Kevin a bit earlier on in the week, and he highlighted some other libraries that people have also implemented, like automatic sub-document creation in the background. So yeah, there's still a lot of stuff you have to go and figure out. It's not as easy as it could be. Hence I'm asking people to join, and the more people that write blog posts and distribute, I think this is the right way to go. It just gives you so many options, especially because of the abstraction of the providers. You can use WebRTC or WebSockets or Redis or all these different technologies, and then also on the persistence layer, LevelDB or Mongo. There's a whole bunch of different plugins, so it's built quite modular as well.
Yeah, actually, I had a follow-up question on the persistence layer. So do you store, do you over a longer period of time store the YJS transaction log, or do you consider like when a session, all participants have disconnected, that you just throw it away and then you recreate it once the, next kind of session starts in the same document?
Yeah. So on the server, the server is just an active participant in the CRDT peer-to-peer group essentially. And what I'm doing is I've just got some debounce logic that's saving the resultant data model. So not the YJS logs, but the resultant data model. I'm saving that back into MongoDB. So I'm timing it out like every 3 seconds, every 10 seconds if there were changes. I'm saving it back into Mongo. So there I've written my own sort of code to do that. And I'm using a single server at the moment, and I'm using LevelDB as the persistent storage because I've just got one instance of the server side CRDT at the moment. I'd probably move to Redis for that later on and scale it out. Sorry, I've lost you. I've lost your sound there.
Yeah, you've got it.
There we go.
All right. Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you for the talk and thanks for the answers. Thank you.
Werner, I'm just gonna see myself in now.
So I had a question for you. Firstly, yeah, my name's Akash. So I had a question for you. So in terms of the providers, have you found any major differences between the experience you had with WebRTC or WebSockets?
Yeah, so I haven't really used the WebRTC much. I've written like a lot of code already using WebSockets, and I'm using the Socket.io library because yeah, I'm just comfortable with Socket.io. I've done a lot of application development on Socket.io, so I haven't really used the other providers much. The WebRTC, you also just need to like set up the. You need to be familiar with like stun and the turn protocols and those type of things, so they can be trickier to implement.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone else got any questions for Werner? Would you like to come and ask, or yeah? Are you okay answering questions still, Werner? I know it's quite late for you where you are.
Yeah, no, go for it. Go for it.
Cool. There you go.
Yeah, it's just a very simple infrastructure question almost. Has this been like really like load tested to like see like where does it like stop working as smoothly or feel like stop feeling like magic? Is there like a point where it just doesn't really work at the number of connections and the number of data input? Just yeah.
Yeah, the does it scale question. So there's actually been quite a lot of discussion of that on that in the YJS community. I've had some discussions with Kevin, the main developer, on that. So you could scale it out. There is a way to scale it out with sort of a Redis pub sub in the background. I haven't done anything on that yet, so I'm leaving that problem for later. At the current present moment, our software works quite well without it. We haven't seen any kind of issues. The YJS is quite efficient in its data structures and the format that it's using on the background. So there's a great resource. So I'll share the slides, and there's actually a great resource and a blog post by somebody who used to be on the Google Wave team, where the title of the blog post is "I Was Wrong, CRDTs Are the Future," and he actually his thesis was that CRDTs can't scale. And when he came back years later and looked at how far the technology moved, he said, had Google had CRDTs when they were developing Google Wave, he thinks it might have been successful. And then he goes and he tries to write a really efficient CRDT, and he gets impressive performance metrics out of it. I know they're also working on some like Rust, and then trying to bring that into WebAssembly and all sorts of other optimizations that we'll probably get down the line. So I think because it's such an easy and great technology to work with, I'm sure when bigger companies start using it, the efforts will be put into to make it really scale.
Cool, thank you. That's a great answer.
All right. Anyone else got any questions? Oh, cool.
Oh yeah. So I have a question about access control. So are these just like state stores that are globally accessible? And how, for example, if you had a private document, you had a private document, how could you ensure that people are only editing that document if they have the particular access control for that?
Yeah, so the security is implemented on actually on the provider side. So the same way that you wouldn't just let anybody connect to your WebSocket endpoint and read out data. That's where we're implementing the security. So essentially, I don't know if you're familiar with Socket.io, but to join a room, you can pass through authentication token. So for each data model that you want to synchronize, you can put that into a room, and then you'd have to pass through the correct authentication token to be allowed into that room. So that's an easy way to implement security. Yeah, you definitely just don't want anybody to hear all of the updates to any of the data models.
Cool. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you. Awesome. So, okay, do you want to ask, or do you want to? You can come in, or I can ask for you.
I can just grab it from. Hi. First of all, great talk. But wanted to check with the UX on the topic. Like, obviously, the model can resolve conflicts fairly straightforward from its side. But how do you deal with two users updating one specific document? Like, let's say I've saved and you've saved like a second or millisecond after me. How do you deal with that sort of issue of losing data because of user error, but obviously they don't know it?
Yeah, so it depends on your use case. The original place where CRDTs were developed is actually for textual data. So it's this long, basically byte stream, and you need to keep track of the positions of the relative users. So basically, Google Docs, we're both editing the same document. So YJS is built some other document types like a map and an array into that. So the conflict resolution mechanism will be, it's implemented differently on the different document types. I couldn't go much into detail on the textual one. Is probably the most advanced way of how it does conflict resolution. But for our use case, like the last data to be put into that JSON model. So we've got this huge JSON model that's quite hierarchical, and the last person to sort of write to that value, that's the one we're taking, and that works well enough for us, and that probably works well for like 99% of the use cases. You could say
like
that. Sorry, I lost you there.
I think we've lost him.
Okay, I think I'm back.
All right, it's fine.
So you could for example say this is a map data type, and like deeper within the hierarchy structure, you could say this specific value is a textual document, and then the CRDT won't take the last value as a truth. It will actually use the textual positional adding and removing mechanism within that field in your data model. So it depends which YJS document types you're using. I don't know if I explained that well enough.
Yeah, to an extent. I think that the base was mostly of how do you sort out user error, because that is I suppose a big thing. Like the tech can sort out the
So last write wins is actually useful in like 99% of the cases. Last write wins makes sense, and then I would control for user error, like stupid user error, just by catch code in the front end before you even get to the CRDT.
That
confirmation boxes before deleting certain values, and do you really want to rename this? We've implemented renaming as well. So sometimes we'd rename like the key, which contains this massive object, and we've got that working as well. So those are tricky ones to get around, but we've done the code to do that on our side then.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Anyone else before we have Chris come up? All right, cool. Werner, awesome. Everyone loved it. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who is watching online as well for bearing with us through technical difficulty. So, Werner, I'm going to take you out of the stream now. I'll catch up with you soon. Thank you very much. And we're going to have Chris come on. And Chris, we're going to have to make sure your microphone works. Do you want to share your screen as well?
Yes.
Cool. Can anyone who is listening let us know if you can hear Chris or not?
Hello.
I think we should be able to hear you, not through the speakers, but on the screen.
All right, Chris, start talking.
Hello, my name's Chris.
I think you are audible.
I'm presenting.
Should we share your screen? Why is it not showing on there?
It's showing on there.
It's so much easier, Microsoft Reactor.
Have you started sharing?
Yeah, it's sharing. So that's the screen. Yeah.
So I think it should be up now.
It is. So,
Let me see if it's something here.
right, so everyone can hear you, Chris. That's cool. So it'll work out why we can't see this. Right.
It doesn't show anything here.
Right. What's happening to your There we go. Oh my God. Okay. Just need the camera. Do you want the camera on, or are you okay?
I'm good. So
Okay. Try talking.
hi, I'm Chris Ellis. I am the Director of Engineering at XtendOps, and I wanted to show the business case, or a business case, for SvelteKit. I'm Chris, and there's my contact information down at the bottom. So XtendOps, we're an outsourcing company, processes outsourcing, think customer support, customer experience. When I started, we were around 600 employees. That was a year ago. We're now up to close to 2,000. So we've been scaling rapidly, and the engineering team is responsible for helping that scaling process happen. And we support both clients and people. So those are capitalized here. So our clients, we're doing client work, and we're also supporting the people operation, which includes HR, hiring, so recruitment, which is a big thing at our company. So we're building an ATS. We have a custom assessment portal, and that's what my team's working on. So our tech stack, we're mostly a JavaScript shop. We do have Python and people exploring Rust. We are getting into bigger data from our clients. We work for companies like HelloFresh, Match.com, JCrew, to name a few. And our current tech stack is Svelte, MongoDB, and Meteor. That's probably a name you haven't heard in a while. It's what we started with, and it's a function of what the company was in when I joined. So we were in a product development stage where the recruitment platform that we were using wasn't really suiting the needs for the company, and we wanted to own the data that came with it. We wanted to have our own sort of assessment platform, especially at the scale that we're hiring. So to do that, we needed to be agile with the how we were building the application. So we use Meteor. I've been using Meteor for close to 10 years now, right when it came out. This was before React, before a lot of the front-end frameworks that are familiar and loved by us today. And what we got out of it was the batteries included. It had full stack JavaScript from front end to back end. Deployment is much simpler with Meteor, especially if you're using Meteor.com deployment. They call it cloud now. You speak Galaxy, I believe. But we had authentication, we had roles, we had data model, which was fast and loose. And the stage that we're getting into now with the company, we need to start hardening that data model. So this is the Meteor site from the Wayback Machine. If you go to archive.org, and I included this because Meteor was, and I couldn't find it, but Meteor was originally marketed as a rapid prototyping engine. So you think Ruby on Rails, Meteor was the equivalent for JavaScript at the time. I think the design is pretty cool here. I think you start to see that sort of hand-drawn design come back, which is interesting. I've forgotten this design when we look back at it, but it was the choice for Meteor was very much a function of where the company was when we started this effort. And I still love Meteor. It has made my career. I've built hundreds of sites probably with it. If you include what we did during the pandemic, which was a lot of sites. We were doing virtual conferences, and we would clone a lot of them. So it wasn't like we were starting fresh each time. But we started experiencing issues with it at XtendOps. So our builds started slowing down. They started out about 10 minutes in production through CI/CD. They started going up to 30 minutes. it is a smaller ecosystem. So there's not as many Meteor developers out there, which means there's not as much documentation. And I mean, it's still a big company. It's owned by Tiny, the owners of Dribble, if you've heard of them. Companies like Disney and I think Mazda was using Meteor at one point, but it's starting to show cracks in what we need as a company. It also, the developers have been saying that it feels heavy. Getting it running on lower quality machines, particularly AMD for some reason, it's slow. So, and we knew a better way. We had been using SvelteKit on front end, so the question started to come up: could we build our application in SvelteKit with that model? So that was the dilemma, and it's really my job at the company, or one of my roles, is to kick the tires. So any Americans listening, I've got the American spelling for tires as well, but I thought I would suit the audience here. But one of my roles is to make sure that what we are planning on doing can actually be implemented. Can it be implemented by any developer? Can it be implemented for our company? Can it be implemented by our developers? So I have to check all of those things to make sure that it's a good solution to recommend. So I got into that phase, and for us, that phase had 4 key questions that we had to answer. Can we build an authentication that Meteor already has baked in? And can we do that and use it in SvelteKit? Can we build our most complicated assessments? We'll discuss these in a little bit, but one of the key things to our platform is the idea of flows. So every job that someone's applying for is not the same flow. You may be presented with a different video. We can A/B test it. We can change the directions on it. We can have specific assessments in the native language of the people that are applying to the company if we choose to, or we haven't gotten there yet, but that's one of the things. But that prototyping phase, we had an evolved data model where we didn't stick very close to an exact schema. We allowed it to evolve to what the business needed. In doing that, we have lots of different data shapes within our platform. So can we start to wrestle those in? It's now the stage where we need to start hardening the schema. So what does that look like? So authentication. Meteor's account system is nice to work with. It's got a lot baked into it to begin with. And then there's packages which you can bring OAuth from different providers in. They have their baked in serverless or passwordless login. So can we duplicate that? So the great thing about open source is that you can open the source and see how it's put together. That's what I set out to prove here, and I was able to do it. It didn't take that long to actually do and implement. Now it's our own account system, and we can change it how we want as things move forward. So the voice assessments. These were our most complicated assessments. I had several questions that I needed to answer. Can we actually do the transcription of what someone records and score that? Can we use that for machine learning? Can we apply our BPO level of English to it? And does it actually work in endpoints? You have a size limit on endpoints. So are we using anything that won't let it work? Does it have to actually be done at that point? Does it have to be scored as soon as it's taken? So I proved that. So the flows, a flow, it's a series of specific steps, and it can vary based on whatever we choose. You just slash random and do it at different times of day. We don't, but we could. So our jobs, currently, most of the roles that we're hiring for are customer support and customer experience. But if we were hiring developers, a lot of those assessments wouldn't be relevant for that. So having different assessments, if you've ever used TopTal and applied through TopTal, it would be similar type application process. So we're using a SPA-like routing within the components that control these. And I say SPA-like because if you refresh, you get back to the same point as well. So it keeps track of state, but it loads quicker if you use SPA. So. And then the data model. How do you start forcing a data model on something that hasn't had that many constraints before? And that's the beauty of Mongo, but also it's kind of poison pill. So how do you start to do that? And how do you handle it, but stay flexible on parts where you don't need a definite data model? So what we opted for was Prisma, and introspection and really saves the day. If you've not tried this before, you should definitely give this a try. I wasn't going to sit down and write a 1,200-line schema on a weekend, nights. No, I wasn't going to do that. So it gave a great starting point. I can tell you, does it build? The answer is no. You have to have 2 coffees and about 3 or 4 hours of good music to get through the errors of that. But the feeling that you get once you get through that sort of thing and you have the build is something that's what we live for as developers. So success. So you can get this on Know Your Meme if you weren't aware of that website, which I doubt, but it was a huge success. I was able to prove out that this was a feasible option for the company. So then how do we do it? We've got 10 developers. How do we go about building the same application in a different portal? So we'll discuss that. So I have a team of 10 developers. They're all full stack, but everybody has what they prefer to work in. And they were already fluent in Svelte. This wasn't a Svelte teaching. They knew they were React developers before, and the move to Svelte was very quick. What they needed to understand was the data fetching and the endpoints of SvelteKit and the other parts for that. So what we did was we split it up. You don't all work in the same component. If you've ever tried that, that's insane. I would not recommend it. We're not dogmatic on the team. You could probably tell that from the beginning with the evolving data model. But the default case is to use Prisma where it makes sense on the models that make sense. And then where it doesn't, which we've got some very loosely typed models still, we could opt out to Mongo Client. So you have options to get out of Prisma here. And this is mainly a concern coming from Mongo or from Meteor, because Meteor had a very tightly integrated MongoDB connection. It didn't use REST. We were using DDP with it. We were using aggregations, which I haven't tried with Prisma, but that's on my to-do list of things to explore. So integration, as parts of the application start to become ready, we know what we're aiming for it to look like. We need to start making sure that those gaps between different pieces work. And Flows made this particularly complicated because what goes from the cognition assessment to the voice assessment to another registration piece will be different for another job, will be different for another office. So how do we do that? It takes a lot of paying attention and going through this several times to make sure that bugs aren't being emitted with it. So, and then did the Svelte endpoints handle everything, and did the developers understand how to use them? That was the case. So testing, we did have playwright testing for end-to-end. and there was a lot of manual testing involved as well. It's pretty much required. We do have 2 people who work in UI UX, so they were lifesavers for that. So thank you, Tommy and Gabby, for your contribution here. But I mean, it was a whole lot of taking the assessments again, going through the process, and making sure that what we're building works. So the results. Some of these you could probably expect. I wouldn't be talking about it if it had been a disaster. So we had a great dev experience. We'll start with that. That's, that everybody that I've talked to has lauded the dev experience with this. It feels faster to work in. That's due a lot to the Vite engine, but it's also due to the idiomatic nature of Svelte. Like, it just feels like what you're expecting something to do, it does. The endpoints are great. I mean, this is just all rosy. The endpoints are a great way to handle API calls. It's very close into the same database. That's one of the big advantages of Meteor is it's all within the same platform. So that helps instead of splitting it apart. Prisma Client's great. The IntelliSense from that is invaluable. I saw some 100% marks for people on YouTube. So, how long do you think it took this for us to do this as a team? 10 developers, 10 assessments. There's 10 assessments and registration. 2.2 weeks. So we did it in one sprint. I'd already done some pieces of it. Authentication was handled. Some of the assessments models had been handled, and I got through all those Prisma errors that were a challenge. Our goal was 2 weeks, so 10% over is not bad here, I would say. And we were trying to get it in before Christmas time, so we had a deadline. So some of the technical performance, you could probably, if you've done any Svelte research, you could probably guess a lot of these. The way that you can look at this is on the left, you've got before, which is Meteor, and afterwards you've got Svelte. What we found is we've got 2 routes that we're mainly looking at. So the landing page, which is what people hit when they first hit this application, and huge benefit there on performance, and these are Lighthouse scores. So the other one is the assessments. So not as notable a benefit, but it's still a significant change in performance. And then what I find more interesting are the metrics. So this is the number of seconds for first contentful paint, time to interactive, speed index, and largest contentful paint. So some notable benefits here, 4.3, it's a big one there, but the assessments saw the biggest speed index increase. So all of these below 5, and just so you know, there's a lot going on in the assessments. So this is a big impact because a lot of the people that apply to the company, they're applying on mobile devices and not with the best internet. So this makes a huge difference. So what? That's what my CEO would say. Like, okay, yeah, we have an exact clone. You great, you've done the same work again. Like, why does that matter? You got better dev experience. Okay, you can move faster, but what does that mean? You got better technical performance, but what does that mean for people that are using the application? So how does this help the business? That's what he's really asking. And that's what there's not a lot of information out about a switch to SvelteKit or a similar system. So it increased one of our KPIs, assessment completion rate, by 5%. So that's on 1,000 applications, 28 days before and 28 days after. These sorts of numbers are hard to come by, and it's only over a very specific time frame that this could have been done. So I'm not overfitting here. It can't be done because the application next week is going to be significantly different. It is going to be a different application. It won't look the same. So to control all of those things, this is the time frame that we had to get this kind of insight. So whatever your KPI is, you want to compare and A/B test it, which I suppose that we could still do that. We have the old code base, we could spin that up, but it is going to be significantly different. And with this increase, I don't think that we would choose to do that because we know the difference here. So connecting the dots, you do need to put this in the framework of a business impact to get sign off on something like this. So if you have those use cases, please share them with the community. This is important for moving people over to Svelte and SvelteKit. And you have to be careful about how you choose the data. Like you really have to control for a lot to make it a good comparison. So it's not just about the code, kind of is, but it's not. So it is a much better dev experience, but that's not the only. They're not the only stakeholders at play here. So what do our customers experience? What is their experience? What are our applicants' experience? What are our businesses' experience? So we found an improved experience moving to SvelteKit, and I hope you will too. So if you want to do this, my recommendation is that you prove out your most difficult cases, and authentication is going to be a different piece, most likely. You will have to handle that in Svelte, and there are libraries that are working on this. Particularly for us, because of Meteor, we do have to solve the data model issue, but you could reach out to your existing backend if you wanted to. And I would recommend you build your use case. Start that early, what your plan is to be able to explain to the business leaders. And developer leaders need this sort of information as well to make these arguments when they're in meetings about moving to a new platform or framework. So, and that's it. That's questions.
Yeah, well, I don't want to touch the microphone down there. Anyone got any questions for Chris? Anyone online? Let me just check the chat. Let me check, Chris. Sorry, mate.
Some question. Is the Svelte hiring pool at this point bigger than the Meteor hiring pool?
Yes.
Because you did mention it's a smaller community. So because I can imagine Svelte is increasing, but do you have any idea what the size?
I would imagine, yeah. I haven't really looked for Meteor jobs in a while, but I would imagine. I think a lot of the Meteor jobs are on like those payment, like was it Fiverr and those sorts of things. So there are ones out there. I have seen one in like Geneva or something, but I think a lot of this is moving towards legacy. I hate to say that because I really love Meteor. Oh, yeah, nice, yeah. And we're gonna keep some of our platform in Meteor just because that takes DevOps completely off the table, and it's a unified model. And if we don't change our account system very much, so.
A little more specific question: Has the documentation scene gotten better for you? Because that was one of the things you said you struggled with.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of documentation.
Sorry.
Oh yeah, so has the documentation scene changed? Yeah, I mean, I think it's trade-offs. Like the Meteor is a very particular data model, so you have to get out of the REST frame of mind to work in it. So there's just a lot more information on REST-driven development. To move this every once in a while. So there is a lot more documentation out there, I feel.
Woo. Just in case anyone's hungry, don't know what's happened to the pizza. Sorry. I ordered 11, 12 pizzas, and delivery just said, yeah, we couldn't find you. We left it on the doorstep. And we've got outside, there's no food. So, sorry.
I demand a refund.
Yes. Yeah, I want to demand a refund.
Time for another question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the business metrics. Did you start off with the business metrics in mind and then make the business case, or was it more like a time box black ops project where you went, let's give this a go?
Let's give it a reason. So the question is the business metrics. And just let me check and make sure that I understand. So did we start off with the business metrics?
Yeah, like the completion rate.
Yeah. It was something that I knew with my experience with SvelteKit that it was going to be an improved experience, particularly on the team front. We were already working in SvelteKit. We had our main website SvelteKit, but so I knew that there would be an improved team effort. The business metrics, I didn't know what the number was going to be. No idea, and there's no way to test that out without actually having done the change. So when I started exploring this, I saw the change in Lighthouse scores, and particularly because we're hiring in more remote locations in Mexico and the Philippines, it's very important the number of megabytes that are being downloaded, and I mean we're optimizing it even more today. So it's something that we did sort of backfill with the business metrics, but I knew which direction it was going to be going. So attributing it to a certain number, this just isn't going to stay up. Attributing it to a specific number was like, I didn't know it was going to be 1,000 people within that time frame. It was just what we have available, and that's like the max change that we can compare, because just after that 29 days is when different sprint, and it was significant change. So yeah.
So if the time box of 2 weeks wasn't going to work out, what was the plan? And like, so basically, did you already account for it taking longer? And were you gonna like just trash the effort, I guess, if it did work out?
So the question is, if the time box hadn't worked out, what would we have done? So I think we would have continued, but it started to run into the holidays, and we have like 4 countries on the team, so we have 4 separate holidays all around that time. So it meant a January or mid-January release, which nights and week, not nights and weekends. So it was. I knew after the first couple of days that we would probably hit it, just at the speed at which we were getting PRs in, and the PRs were actually close to ready, and so. But we would have continued. I knew the direction this was going, so it was going to be a huge improvement for the company. So yeah.
So you talk about speed and performance of the application. You also talk about developer experience. So what would have happened if you implemented the SvelteKit application and it wasn't as performant as the Meteor one?
That's an interesting question. So the question is the speed and performance of the application versus the speed of development of the application. So say we increase the speed of development of the application, but Meteor is actually faster than SvelteKit. So if that had happened, I would have been wildly surprised. I had already proved it in the prototyping phase. So kicking the tires of this, I had already proved that even within that voice assessment, it was much faster. We got the actual response back from GCS faster as well. So it, I mean, it wasn't an issue. I don't know what we would have done.
As an engineer on the team,
Yeah.
If the worst case scenario happened that the application was slower,
Yeah.
would you have opted into using SvelteKit or go back to the legacy code base?
I mean, that's so if the application was slower, the answer sort of depends on what stage the company is. So do we need to move faster in terms of what we're building or the quality and like the user experience of what we're building? Because sometimes, and I'm a big believer that you have to get a product into people's hands to get the actual feedback. They need to say, no, that's not what I meant, or that is what I meant, but it needs to do it this way. And then the changes that you make changes into how the company thinks about things and does the application. So if it was product development, we probably would have stuck with whatever made us go faster. But if it wasn't useful if it wasn't useful to be able to complete applications on it, then it's not suited for purpose. So I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah.
I've lost the will to do anything at the moment. Any of this. Right. Let's try this. Can everyone hear me on the stream? I can see the microphone is moving. So there's one left, which is me, and it's going to be me sharing my screen. I'm not sure how I'm going to be doing this right now. So if you can all just bear with us for a second while I try and work out what I'm going to be doing with this. So just bear with me 1 minute, please. Yes, I do, because I'm in behind. So let's try that. Right. Thanks, mate. Everyone really appreciated it, I'm sure.
Only my team hears me talk that much.
I don't know. I think you're getting the sweet spot of transitioning like being someone that I haven't
Right, Chris, could you, well, I've got that plugged in, so I'm guessing I just need to connect this microphone. Right, could you grab that?
Which?
Escape, I guess. Right, so, I think I'm on the stream still. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. So if you see them here, can everyone hear me okay? All right. Right, let's look at the camera. So I want to share my screen. So
This one.
Just do it. I don't know at the moment. Just do it. Stop screen.
Yeah, I don't do any web development.
Yeah, maybe a drink.
And then we went to the website and it just said not to work from next to
Right. Step myself to this. Just step myself to the stream. Fine. Right. So hoping everyone can hear me. So I had slides and everything for this evening, and just the way things worked out, everything just sort of went wrong. We just had Werner's talk, said Chris's talk, so now it's down to me. So this talk is really just a blog post from something I did the other day. So I made a stupid project like I usually do, and what was I doing? Oh yeah, I was searching for httpcodes.com, and someone parked the domain, so that was fine. But then I thought, what about httpcodes.dev? And no one had it, so I went and bought it just for the reason so I could have it. And then I went and put in like a details tab first of all, and I wanted to get something which wasn't this animation. Basically, what I had to start with was this, where it just popped out. So this is just the standard details. Wow, it's dark. This is just the what is this? It's this, the old detailed summary HTML element. So that's fine, but it's not, doesn't look nice. It doesn't, have that nice slick sliding out animation. And I thought, well, I could do this with Svelte transition, right? I can use the, what is it? Not the action. I'm going to come on to the action. The Svelte transition, right? So I could just, wrap what I wanted to have in this component in a slot, which I've got in here, and just put it in a slot and then just slide it out, which is this next section here. So I thought, cool, that's going to look good. Oh, hang on, wait, why is it doing that last little jumpy bit at the bottom there? And that's because of just the the full height you get, and this adds it into the DOM after it starts to transition. So there's always going to be like this full height issue when it comes to that. So I didn't want that. I mean, it was good, and it could have just gone in there like that. But then I started digging around, and I found something. Scott Talinsky did a video on this exact component a while back, last year sometime, and I spent the last couple of days just trying to wrap my head around what it does. I mean, it's just the web animations API stuck into a component. Let's just take a look at it here. Right, so before we do that, it is actually this details action here. And man, this guy's flitting about a lot on his computer, isn't he? Yes, I am. Right, let's go through this blog post and find. So there are ways to animate your details tab, your detail summary sort of component, and there's plenty of explanations on how to do it. It doesn't look great. I mean, if you take a quick look at this one, as a quick example, is it this? Run snippet. Yeah, here we go. Right, so this, and I mean, it's sort of okay, but I wanted to do something with, I want to try the Svelte transition stuff first of all, which is what we were just looking at on the local host there. And, it does it okay, but then I'm using this if open So I'm using the Svelte if directive here to say, if the button's clicked, then we're going to show this. Otherwise not. And the only thing is with this solution here is that this isn't in the DOM. So it's only once the button's clicked. I'll guess what this sort of last little bit of jankiness is here, where it sort of gets brought into DOM and animated out. So I started playing about with the Web Animations API, and to do that, I need to use the Svelte use action, and this allows you to attach the use action to any element in the DOM, and then that gets you get access to the DOM node with that, and you can also pass in some additional parameters. And I don't know why you can't actually see the border on this in this page here, but we can in this example, and we can also take a look in the code. I mean, that looks a bit, what's the word for it, dark. But let's just go through what we get when we use an action in Svelte. So this is just, I could go through this step by step, but I'm not actually going to sit down and sort of live code it. So I just want to step through what's actually been done here. So just created the custom action I'm going to use, and it's scrolled all the way down to where it's actually been used in this div here. So I'm using this slide action, and this is attached to the div, so it's passes in that node to the this function here, and I'm also passing in this open property, and that can be an object, and you can use it to do whatever you like. But I just want to say whether we're going to start the animation or not. So in here, I'm taking the initial height and the offset, and I'm going to use that for the Web Animations API here. So this takes in, if I hover over that, it takes in the keyframes and the options. So the keyframes is I want it to go from 0 to the initial height, and the options here, it's quite quick, 200 milliseconds. It's going to ease in out, and this fill both. I was a bit confused by this, along with the direction. I mean, the direction is either goes backwards or forwards, but you actually need the fill here as well. And we're just taking this on the Boolean we're passing in here. So I did play around with these options, and all I wanted to have was just something to just pop out like this on click. Turns out if you don't pause the animation to begin with, and you're actually taking the on finish time here, and actually commenting out the whole function there. Let's try that. Then when it reloads, it's just going to be at the full height, which I'm guessing is this one. But then it's always going to be playing the animation in reverse here. So that's why we need to have this check to say if it's finished, then we want to have the current time set to 0. So we say that if it's playing, this is just so we can stop it midway and reverse it again. So you can tell I put a lot of thought into actually this presentation, along with the slides. But I had a lot of fun with this, and there's also this additional option in here. So if you can create your own custom event as well. So if we just want to animate out the objects, the animation I made in here is just to expand out this div. This could be anything you wanted it to be, but I think the great thing with the use action with Svelte, it just gives you access to any any DOM node. It gives you access, fine-grained access to the DOM nodes, so you can do what you want with them. It doesn't have to be animation. I mean, this was just the one example of this sort of done project I used, but it could be for other things as well. So there is what I demoed last year was the Svelte Kit Venture Commerce project, and I don't actually know what the URL is for it. Let's just take a quick look at this. So you can have like a click outside action, and I do that for the cart on the project here. So this is another good example how to use an action. We can just click off of this and it will shrink it back down. So I've got the implementation and what it is to do that in here. So we're just bringing in a node again, and if you can say it's a target, then we are going to slide it out or not. And again, we're adding in our custom event here, which we can use in our action here. Sorry, we can use we can have a custom event. Say when that happens, then we're going to handle our click outside. And in this case, it's just being used in like a simple store to do that. Anyway, I think I have spoken about what I was trying to achieve and how I did that, and sort of went over. You can, once you've got access to the node, obviously you can add a custom event to it. In this instance, I just added in an animation end. So we've got this nice smooth action here, and then what have we got on here? Yeah, I just added some confetti to it. So you can assign that to it. Where is that one here? Action custom event. So I'm choosing Puru's what's it called? Neo confetti, and just adding that to the use action once the animation is ended. So that custom event here, and we're just calling to run that confetti from there. So that was me playing about with the Web Animations API in Svelte. Obviously, you can see I've taken a lot of time into doing this talk. I'll be honest, I spent quite a lot of time putting that blog post together, and I just wanted to talk about what I learned. And I thought it was pretty cool. Apart from the click outside action we spoke about, and the Web Animations API, I also made a sarcasm component. So this was, I think Wes Bos tweeted this a couple of years ago, on implementing it into the browser. And it was just a joke, obviously, but I used that in my old NDX blog, and haven't been able to use it in Svelte because I didn't really have, I thought I'd just be able to pass in the children, and within a slot in Svelte, you don't have direct access to it, but you do with an action. So I just assigned the action to the containing element, and that means that I can then use that component to write out my sarcastic sentences. And that's it really. So the Web Animations API was the main part of it, and it's what I spent a lot of time sort of playing about and getting used to. But then there was other bits which come out of this which I have played around with as well. So I'm going to call it at that for the talk. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them, especially on the chat as well. I don't think there's anyone on the chat. Anyone here?
So I have a question about the last code sample where you switch between the upper and lower case.
Yes.
Call. Is that sarcastic itself? Is that like a meta commentary of the code? Would you write that code in production?
No, it's just a dumb bit of code, isn't it? Why would you want to put something like that in production anyway? I had that on my old MDX blog. I just passed in the contents of the children, as you do with a React component, and the way you do it in Svelte is you have slots, but you don't get direct access to the slot in a component, but you can with, if you use an action, you get access to the node. So it's just,
I guess
a bit of fun.
Metaphorically speaking, interpolating function call names is kind of like slots.
I don't know what you mean. So
Never mind. I'm just taking it too early.
okay. Yeah. So it's just a dumb bit of code I've got online. It's just a bit of fun. And I was like, I can actually start manipulating the DOM node on there. I mean, all for their production. Absolutely not. But yeah, if anyone's got any other questions about my, questionable code, no one on the chat, no one else here. Sorry about the pace, everyone. All right, so we're going to end the broadcast and say thank you to everyone for tuning in.